You're watching Chicago Bears Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Harrison Graham, and happy Friday, everybody. We got some news and rumors to get to here on Chicago Bears Now, and I want to start with an interesting one, and it directly correlates with the Bears, so stick with us here. Is C.J. Stroud going to return to Ohio State? Now, let me just say this first. I think this is very unlikely still, but internet rumors are swirling that C.J. Stroud could return to Ohio State for 2023. He was disappointed that he's lost to Michigan in both career starts against Michigan. That's a huge deal for an Ohio State quarterback. They lost on a missed field goal to have a chance to play for a national championship against TCU. He seems to love Ohio State. And in the era of NIL, there could be some NIL money getting salvaged together to try and convince Stroud to come back. This would make things very, very interesting for the NFL draft and for the Chicago Bears, who have the number one pick. We will kind of explain that side of it in a second. But C.J. Stroud is one of the top draft prospects if he does declare in this class, which that's key. He has not officially filed paperwork and declared for the draft yet. The deadline is Monday the 16th, so clock's ticking. He's got a couple of days here. What he did in 2 seasons at Ohio State, 85 touchdowns against 12 picks. I mean, this is a guy that's going to go top 5 if he comes out. Now, if he does stay, if he does return to college for another year, that has direct impact for Chicago, who sits with the number one pick. Not necessarily because they were going to draft C.J. Stroud. In fact, I don't believe the Bears are going to draft a quarterback, but because of all the teams below the Chicago Bears. That makes the number one pick that much more compelling, because if you're the Houston Texans right now, say Houston loves both C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young. Well, if C.J. Stroud goes back to college and they're not that in on Will Levis, well, a team like Indianapolis could trade up with the Bears and go draft Bryce Young and then leave Houston hanging at number 2. That is why, one of many reasons why getting the number one pick was critical for the Bears to have maximum trade value. This would make the number one pick that much more valuable. Look, it's still going to be incredibly valuable if Stroud does declare, and I still think he will declare, but it is puzzling that he hasn't declared yet. Ohio State got a limit. Their season ended on December 31st. It is January 13th. It's been 2 weeks. Like, what is he waiting for? We've seen guys declare 10 minutes after their bowl game. C.J. Stroud hasn't. What is he waiting on? Look, he can announce when he wants to. He can do whatever he wants. I think there's a small part of him that wants to go back to college and try to win a national championship. And if he does, that really makes this draft that much more interesting, because Bryce Young then becomes, in my opinion, the clear-cut top quarterback prospect. Will Levis becomes that clear-cut 2 guy, and on some boards, the top guy. Does Anthony Richardson enter top 5, top 10 conversation if C.J. Stroud returns to school? We'll see. I'll say this, less quarterback options in this draft equals more desperate teams and more teams trying to move up to secure Bryce Young or a Will Levis or whoever it may be. Because, you know, if you're like Atlanta sitting at number 8 and you're like, oh, well, if Will Levis or Richardson's sitting there, maybe we'll just pick. But maybe they fall in love with Bryce Young and they offer the Bears the house to go up and get him. So we'll see what happens. This is going to be very interested. I'll tell you what, it makes me that much more hyped for having the number one pick. And who's with me? Type me in the comments if you are hyped about having the number one pick in the NFL draft. Type me down in the comment section below. Now, today's episode of Chicago Bears Now is sponsored by Fume. Listen, we all have bad habits, and we certainly know how hard they can be to kick those bad habits. Our sponsor, Fume, is on a mission to accelerate humanity's breakup from those bad habits that consume far too many of us. Fume is a natural diffusive device that uses plants and behavioral science to help you trade out your negative habit for a positive one. I didn't expect much out of Fume when I got it, but the minty sensation is really powerful and really hits the back of the throat. Now, you look at the device right here, the Fume device, and it comes with different flavors. You got the maple pepper, the crisp mint, white cranberry. Very easy to hold, very easy to use. Comes in this nice box as well. You can travel with it very, very easily. Now, I do want to make clear, Fume is not a vape. It's a non-electronic device designed to transform your negative habits. The easiest way to stop a bad habit is to switch to a positive one, and Fume is designed perfectly to do just that. Head to tryfume.com/chatsports and use code chatsports to save 10% off when you get the journey pack today. That's tryfum.com/chatsports and use code chatsports to save an additional 10% off your order today. That link and promo code in the description and comments of this video. Let's get to some free agency rumors here on Chicago Bears now. A couple of them from Bleacher Report, as they have listed Saquon Barkley and a defensive player who we'll get to in a minute as potential Bears free agent targets. And I understand why Barkley could be a suitor for the Bears. I'll explain why in a second. Here's what Christopher Knox of Bleacher Report had to say. He said that with a projected market value of $11.9 million annually for Barkley won't be cheap. However, he could provide a lot for a team with a young quarterback such as the Chicago Bears. Chicago has a promising signal caller in Justin Fields, but it hasn't done a great job of surrounding him with talent. Barkley could aid Fields on the ground and provide him an elite outlet in the passing game. Now, I will push back on elite in the passing game. He does have some drop issues, and look, he's got 338 yards on 57 catches. It's not like he's running wheel routes out of the backfield. My guy Marshall Green will tell you that while Saquon's a decent safety valve, he's not an upper echelon receiver as a running back in the NFL, but he's obviously a very good player. 1,300 rushing yards, 10 touchdowns. He can catch the ball, mostly on dump-offs out of the backfield. I love Saquon Barkley. I really do. But $12 million for a running back, it's a lot of money. And listen, you have 110, 115, 120 million in projected cap space, so you could certainly pay this. But I would probably rather just bring back David Montgomery, a guy that Ryan Poles has made clear that he really likes and values, $6 to $8 million, because I don't think he will cost what Barkley does. Now, if Monty gets in that 10-plus range, would I pay a couple extra to get Barkley? Yeah, I probably would, because I think Saquon's the better player. But if you could get Monty at 60% of the cost, I think that's the way to go if you are Chicago, because you have so many other needs to fill on this roster. Now, pick an option at running back. Would you rather pay Saquon Barkley $12 million per year? If you would, type SB. Or would you rather just re-sign David Montgomery at $6-7 million per year? Type DM. The other option, of course, is drafting it back in the later rounds to pair with Khalil Herbert. SB for Barkley at $12 million, or DM for Montgomery at $7 million. Now, Dalvin Tomlinson, the other free agent that Bleacher Report mentioned that the Bears could be interested in. Tomlinson, kind of a one-tech nose tackle for the Minnesota Vikings. He's bounced around a little bit in the NFL. Knox wrote this up on this potential possibility, saying that while Chicago could draft a blue-chip defender such as Will Anderson Jr. or Jalen Carter with the number 1 overall pick, the top 2 prospects on the Bleacher Report scouting department's big board, it could stand to sign a player like Tomlinson as well. And yeah, imagine a scenario where the Bears get Will Anderson. Well, they're going to need some defensive tackle help, and Tomlinson could do just that. He's got decent pass rushing ability as a nose tackle, eats up blockers in the run game as well, as he's listed at about, I think, 6'3", 325. He's a pretty big guy in there at that one tech, and I think he'd be a great one tech, certainly better than anyone the Bears have trotted out there this year at 3 or 1 tech. But just to be clear, this does not fix your defensive line. You would still need edge rushers. You still need a 3 tech. Tomlinson's not a guy that's going to shed 20 pounds and play 3 tech for you, and we know that position is valuable in this defense, but let's be real, too. You look at this defensive line, I mean, it needs, so much, right? Like Robinson and Gibson, I think they're good rotation guys. They're not starters. Justin Jones, if he's one of your starting defensive tackles and you get a really good one at the other spot, maybe, but I'd like him more as like your 3rd guy. Maybe you bring back a guy like Armon Watts, but Blackson's a free agent. Pinnell, Watts is as well. The whole front 4 needs revamping. I mean, this defensive line was atrocious, if we're being completely honest. Justin Jones was the only one that had any consistency whatsoever. So, yeah, bring in Tomlinson if you want, but that's not adding Daron Payne. Like, let's make sure to not confuse the two, because the 3 tech in this defense is much more important than the 1 tech. All right, make sure you guys subscribe to us here at Chicago Bears Now. There's going to be a ton of rumors around the draft, free agency, news that drops in the offseason. We're going to continue to hit you guys with videos and live shows every single week, videos every single day, to keep you guys caught up with all of it. Other segments as well, like mock drafts, draft targets, free agency targets, all kinds of stuff, trade ideas. Hit the sub button. We will have you guys covered on this channel. All right, let's get to Jaylon Johnson now before we end our news and rumors segment here. Jaylon Johnson entering the final year of his rookie deal next season, as he is eligible for a contract extension. He would, as of now, be set to enter free agency not this offseason, but in 2024. Mark Grody tweeted this as Jaylon Johnson hopped on the radio recently in Chicago and said, when he was asked about potentially getting a contract extension this offseason. He said, quote, that definitely is something I want to shoot for. And I would definitely extend Jaylon Johnson. Since he's come in as a rookie in 2020, he's been your best corner, period. Now, has he always been a lockdown, top 5, number 1 guy? No, but he, more often than not, has held his own and then some at that spot. I think he's like a tier 2 number 1 corner, if that makes sense. Like, he's kind of like when Allen Robinson was here, like he's number 1, but he's not like a DeAndre Hopkins number 1. That's kind of what Jaylon Johnson is. He's not peak Jalen Ramsey, but he's kind of in that next tier of number 1 corners. And these are kind of a grouping of guys that could be getting contract extensions this offseason. You look at Jaylon Johnson as a guy who has been productive and I think has really, really developed into a leader as well for this team. Darnell Mooney, I think he's a guy worthy of looking into potentially getting a contract extension done with as well. Chase Claypool, I mean, look, we were hoping we would have seen more after the trade. I'm guessing they won't extend him, and they'll see how 2023 goes. And if he plays well, then obviously they'll keep him long term. Hopefully that does happen. Cole Kmet, though, I think he gets extended too. I think at least 2 of these guys get extended. I mean, Cole Kmet was a guy that Ryan Poles pointed out specifically as a guy that could be a building block for the long term. So curious to see which guys Poles goes ahead and commits to, as there's a few guys that could be available for just that. All right, who do you think gets extended first? If you had to guess out of these 4 guys, and look, maybe none of them do. Who knows? Type JJ for Jaylon Johnson, DM for Darnell Mooney, CC for Chase Claypool, or you can type CK for Cole Kmet. If you had to guess, who do you guys think gets a contract extension first? All right, it's a loaded show today. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you have any Bears questions, hit me up on social media. Got to give me a follow first, at HGramNFL on Instagram. Same handle on Twitter as well. It's at HGramNFL. Follow your boy, and if you have any questions, we will hit you guys up. At HGramNFL on Instagram. It's also at HGramNFL on Twitter. And, of course, subscribe to the channel for more Chicago Bears videos.